Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing really well. So I just finished the 8th week studying Swahili and I feel pretty good. Today, the way I'm going to do this, I think I'm going to have this kind of like just general review of the last 4 weeks and how I feel and what I've been using. And I'll just talk about two things. I'll talk about the guided courses that I'm using as well as the natural kind of real content, dialogue, stories, things that I'm using at the same time. Um, and then I do this first just so for the people who just want to see this review and don't want to see kind of like the nitty gritty, me noting, me using the material later on in the video, can just kind of watch this first part. So in terms of the guided courses that I'm using, today I just finished language transfer, which feels really good because I feel like that's a really, really big step into the language. I really feel like I've got a really good grasp of the patterns and the way the language functions. And I feel like I can, in any content that I use, no matter what level it is, I can start analyzing the patterns and mean like this means this and that this means that. Maybe I'll show you an example of what I mean by that. But yeah, so now in terms of the guided course, what I'm going to be doing now is kind of what I did with Spanish, which after I did the language transfer for Spanish, I did Asano. So I don't have Asano for Swahili because they only have it in French. So I had to choose between colloquial and teach yourself. And the purpose of doing this for me is really just revising the patterns that I've did in language transfer and to have, sorry, another phase, another 2 months or something, which kind of encourages me to continue noting, to continue noticing patterns in the language, and to continue this forming my base and my fundamental kind of understanding of the patterns and structures in the language. Because I feel like the stronger your base is, because after this it'll just be completely real content, articles, podcasts, as you guys hopefully will see if you stick around. So with a good base, I feel like you can really accelerate at that time when you're just using real content. And so I've been choosing between colloquial and teach yourself, and I made a little page here of all the things that I consider that are important. Like the audio, is there a lot of English or is it more the natural? Is it more the target language? The organization and the layout, the grammar. Do they use too much grammatical terminology? Is it too long-winded? Is it directly associated with the dialogue or the story? It's dialogues for both of them. The exercises, I don't usually do the exercises, so I don't really care about that. But are they varied? Are they like useful? I guess, but I don't do them too much. The dialogues, are they interesting? I remember Arsenal's was really like engaging, which helps. I mean, obviously at this stage you're not really looking for engaging content. You're just kind of enjoying. Well, for me, I'm just enjoying the fact that I can understand anything in the language. But of course, after this, you'll want to find stuff that I'll want to find stuff that I'm interested in, and the length in general. And I think I'm gonna go for teach yourself. Teach yourself. I think after the research that I did, I think that that'd be the best one. So yeah, so that's basically what I'm gonna do now for the guided. In terms of the real content, in fact, I'll show you. So for those of you who will go ahead and look at the rest of the video, you'll see that I've been using this, which is called Kiswahili kwa Computer, which is basically just a series of videos. If this will load, a series of videos as well as the transcripts which I put into that I put into here to use it. So I'll just have it here and then I'll be watching the video next to it and I'll be using it. So I'm still going through with this because there's still year 2 to go through and still year 3, so I'm still going to finish this, and I have other things that I'd like to use after, and so I'll show you as I go along. Also, I do a little bit of Duolingo, so for anyone who wants to know where I'm at, I've just entered level 2. So just to show you a little example of how I think I can analyze the language. If you see here, amendika, a means he or she, me means has or have, and then indica or indica is the verb, so it'd be ku indica by itself, and so it's amendika, he or she has something. Historia probably means history. Qua means for, qua means to be, so for to be possibly, by being maybe. Kupa, I don't know what pa means, but ku means two, like the two version of the form. Angani, I don't know what that means. I don't know what kama means. Rubani, wa means of, so it's rubani, of, indege, and indege means bird or plane, and I think this is something to do with a plane, so it's probably plane. Ya means of, so plane of, and etc. Obviously I don't know many words at all, but that's just to show you like an example of how I can notice quite a lot of the patterns that are being used. Starting the new week with track 55, he just explained the word student and students, singular versus plural, and I remember in Duolingo, when I was doing it in Duolingo up there, I saw that quite a lot, and I never knew, but you get it right in Duolingo because you just know funzi. When you see funzi, it's like student, but I didn't know why it was at the start wanafunzi and mwafunzi, but now I obviously get it, the kind of rules behind it. Right now, he explained something that I haven't seen or I haven't noticed, at the very least, which is changing verbs to make them nouns, and how to change the start the ku, which makes it like a two form, to change it to the other to a noun or like a person who does this thing. So I'm really interested to then go back to my dialogues and try to see if I could notice that. So I remember noting before that the Swahili pronunciation is not too difficult, but you still have to focus to get it right. So for example, the word Africa is pronounced Afrika, and it's quite subtle, but the accents are obviously in different vowels in the word, and if you don't do that, then it won't sound like Swahili. Something that's giving me a bit of confusion is this word matunda means fruit, or fruits, I think it's the plural, but I think it's the M noun class, which means the plural should be mi, so it should be mitunda. So I'm not sure why that is, and I know that like if you just want to make it singular, it's just tunda, because just before we had one that said tunda langu, so my fruit. So I'm really curious to see why that is. Maybe it's a different noun class. And actually, here's the same example with the word pineapple, nanasi. Mananasi makes it plural, but nanasi. Sorry, my camera. Nanasi is singular. So it's fruits in general possibly might be a different noun group. The interesting point here is this word mnajifunza. The fact that there's an M at the start is confusing to me when it says you learn, because M at the start for me is like you guys learn plural. That's what I learned from the course. And if I want to talk to you specifically, I'd just say u najifunza. And so I'm curious to know if that's a Duolingo thing or what's going on. Literally two ones later. Unajifunza. So they use that for u, and let's see if it's right. To give you a little bit of an insight of how I go through these dialogues, so I have the dialogue here, and I have the audio here. So I press it, and usually what they say is the English sentence and then the target language sentence twice. And so yeah, and any word I don't know, I click on it. So for example, I don't know what una indesha means. It means you are running. So, or you are driving. So I'll click on that and I'll click on learning. So now it goes green and now I'm learning it. There's some words I do really recognize from other places, like basi means bus, kati kati, I remember it was in another dialogue, meaning in the middle. I don't know what Gigi means, and so on and so forth. The thing that I'm finding quite weird is right there, you can say unahisi is that you feel, but here, when I feel, it's like a completely different word, najisikia. And just something else that I've noticed is that najisikia means I feel in the present, but in the negative present, you take the last A and you replace it with an I. So that's why we have two I's down here. One of the things that I listen to sometimes when I find ones that I like is songs, just like this one. I won't be using this, like the lyrics, until I get to like a B1 level, but it's really nice to just listen to it right now, so when I get to that level I can start to, I'd already know it, you know what I mean? Hasn't explained it yet, but I'm 100% sure that he's about to explain something huge that I saw in the dialogues that I've always wanted to know, which is to be, but in place, because in the dialogues it's always like, oh, I was in the shop or something like this, and it was always super different from the word kuwa, which means to be. It was always something like ipu or something like that.
A and the M from hapa, kule, umle. And from this, make po, ko, and mo. We have all we need to describe our location in the present tense. If it's understood that you mean there. So what we're saying literally when we say unko, uko, niko, nipo is just I located, you located.
Something that I'm confused about is that in the course they said all the V and ki nouns like kitabu, vitabu would have cha, so kitabu changu or vitabu changu, my books or whatever. But here when you say of, I would expect it to be vitabu cha mwalimu, but it's not, it's via. So I'm interested to see if there's any difference there and why. One of the things that I don't fully understand here is the use of hicho, because this sentence means that is my chair, but I thought that hicho, I learned that there would be using the noun group, so it'd be kile ni kiti changu, but it's hicho, which is very different. So I'll be curious to know if there's other ways to say there and why you'd use them. Pattern I've recognised here that I don't know is with this word. I already know that these end parts of it, the end part of it here, the JUA, sorry you can't see it really well, is to know, and then the U at the start, and the na means you know. But this VYU in the middle is giving it the meaning of that which you know, which is a bit more complex. So I'll be curious to know like how do I construct that kind of sentence. Something slightly odd that I've also realised is right here it's I am thinking about what to do later. They're using cha, which obviously is specific to a certain noun group, but I don't know why they're using that if they're not referring to anything specific. And then here it's I'm not thinking about it or something like that. And they use yake, which is again specific. So because it's ya, and here it's cha. So I don't know. A few sessions back, I remember talking about tunda, fruit, and the plural was matunda, which is not a group that I know. But he literally just picked it up with the word gari, which means car, and the fact that they're their own noun class. So kind of just exactly like what I thought it would be. This noun class ended up being the one that uses langu for mine, because I remember before I mentioned yangu, wangu, zangu, and langu. Different ways to say mine according to the noun class. I made a note earlier on in my last video about how I realized Nina Furahia is, or it was a different one, yeah, Nina Pendelea, which means I prefer, rather than Nina Penda, which means I like. And so right now he's explaining how adding an I before the last A changes the meaning, and he's explaining how the meaning changes. So it's really interesting that was in my head, and then now like I feel like I'm ready for an explanation. Across a word that is quite long and quite difficult, but it means how does he look like, or how does she look like. What I've been able to break down is the start a refers to he or she, na is the present, so ana, one means look, and then the end, putting je at the end of a verb means how, like how was it, how is this thing done. So ana one means how does she see, but then this stuff in the middle, the ka na, I'm not sure yet. So I've been able to break it down to know like, I don't know, 80% of it, and this is probably gonna be taught at some point, and so I'll be able to go back and understand it. In the course I learnt that for this, for example, which means to arrive, comes from kufika. You take it's to for us, and then at the end it changes to an e. But if you put lazima at the start, it means we have to. So that's how you change the verb. But here lazima is not at the start; it's wacha, and the meaning here is let's arrive early. So it'll be interesting to see like another use for changing the verb like this, changing the last a to an e, and adding something at the start. I mentioned that I saw in one of the dialogues that the verb after a certain word changed in the same way that it changed if you wanted to say you have to do something. So you say lazima, and then the verb changes. But in the dialogues I saw it with a different word other than lazima, and I noted that, and I think I said that I was wondering if what other words can cause the verb to change like that.
It's not just lazima that we use this special form of the verb with. We have quite a few very useful words we can use just like lazima to show meanings that we might otherwise use a verb for in English, and generally quite colloquial meanings, that are very useful in the spoken language, like have to.
And there it was explained, or he's about to start to explain it. One of the noun classes that I still haven't come across in the course is this one that has z. Let's use z to refer to it. So fungua means keys, zangu, and ziku. So do you know where my keys are located? But as you can see, the z, I've never been exposed to this. Today's the end of the week, and basically what I wanted to do is, because the last few days what I've been doing is I've listened to lesson 1 to 20 a lot, because I finished studying up to lesson 50, which is the end of the course. I listened to lesson 1 to 20, so now in the morning I'm just reading through lesson 1 to 20, and I just finished to move words that I know into known, and to obviously go back through the content for things that I still don't understand. but around 90% of everything I understand. But there's just some things that I'm happy leaving basically and moving on. But for the next week, my goal is to listen from 21 to 50 a couple of times, and in the morning, possibly Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, read through 21 to 50 to make sure that I understand things. And then I want to move to new content. I want to use a new material because I've had enough of this, to be honest. Stumbled across one of probably the first points of like genuine, not confusion, but like a difficult point in the course where they're explaining this kind of idea. It's like, I want that you do something, or they want that I do something. And it's obviously it changes the verbs and things like that, the way you do it, and I don't know when to use it. So I'm kind of just hoping that through listening and reading a lot, I can see it used a lot, and then maybe go back to an explanation later on, and it can be solid. But I'm always aware that there's going to be points in the language where they're a bit difficult. Last few lessons in the language transfer, we've been learning about commands, as well as to use a really like different word form to say, I want that you do it, and all of that. So if you can see here, this one's the negative of it, and he hasn't taught the negative yet. But I'm realizing what's different about it. There's a U at the start, which is normal, and there's an E at the end. But kunywa, which means to drink, is right in the middle, but there's this SI, C. So I'm wondering if the C, which is usually used for the negative, would be what makes this like a negative command to do something. The same thing is right here. The M at the start means plural, but then there's a C after the M, and then there's the E at the end. So, and this is do not run. So I finished reviewing a lot of Lingua Boost, and I would say I understand 80% of all the dialogues. So I really want to move on right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this A1 to A2 content, and I'm going to choose something. I know that these are stories. These are all children's stories on Amazon, and I think I'm going to use this website. So this website contains year 1, year 2, and year 3. I think it's a university course. But what I really like about it is that it's short videos. I mean, it very much starts with short videos with a transcript. So I can copy and paste this and make lessons out of them in language tools over here. Making a passage, I'll just copy it here, give it a passage name, make a course for the whole thing. And there I have a lot of material to be using. So I just made a couple of lessons from this one. Year 1, I think I did 2 units. There's a couple of units I'll show you. So there's year 1, so I just did these 2 now, and I'll work through those, and I'll just pretty much work through the whole thing. I like that it has video, I like how that it has audio, and I just put them here. And because the site is free for everyone, I've made this open for everyone, but Lingua Boost is private because it's paid content. But this one's the YouTube channel. I only did 1 and I didn't really continue it, but when I come back to it, I'll do more. But for this one, anyone who actually wants to learn Swahili with reading tools, language tools actually it's called, can find this here as well. So the way to say mine, I saw before was yangu or wangu or zangu, and I didn't know where zangu went in, but now it was explained.
My friends, you will just use the plural rafiki. So if you say my friends, how might that be?
Rafiki ziyangu.
Good, then what might happen to ziyangu?
Rafiki zangu.
Good, rafiki zangu.
So it's just showing how Rafiki is an example of an n-noun group that in the plural, the Z and the Y become zangu. So it's something that I kind of already knew. I wanted to know how like it feels like so much has just clicked because of what he just said, because I've heard this so many times, and it's something that I've been very conscious of, just like waiting for an explanation. And now that my mind was like ready for the explanation, it just feels like everything's clicked. In one of the dialogues, I saw that I think I showed you guys as well. After the A, or after the first one, after the first letter, showing who's doing what, there's a second key. In that context, it meant if, and so he just explained that. I'm using the new resource right now. For example, I want to do lesson 5, which has this long name. So the self-introduction one, and then I go here and just try to find it. There it is. And this is what I do is I watch the video first, and then after I watch the video, I watch it again, but looking at the subtitles, and obviously click on it, whatever I don't know, I start looking at it, and then I watch it again at the end. Just wanted to make a note that I thought was quite important is that right now he's going through points that I would say I've always found difficult. The kind of if we were to or we would have that kind of, or if it had been like this, we would have been able to do this. That kind of meaning has always been a difficult meaning to construct, and so he's explained it yesterday, and now in this lesson he's kind of revising a little bit of it. But I just wanted to make a note that I'm not worried about understanding it, nailing it down. I'm going through the course, I'm understanding how to construct it now, and then I'm just going to be relying on a lot of reading and listening and seeing it in context to be able to then absorb it. You know, I'm not worrying about it, I'm not stressing, I'm not trying to write anything down. At the end of a lot of input, if I still feel like I don't understand it, and then I can refer to an explanation again. But then after so much input, that explanation would be very useful, because you've already seen it and heard it so many times. I just wanted to show you the level that the content that I'm using now that I've left Lingua Boost, what it's kind of at, the kind of speed of the conversation.
Anasoma chuo kikuu cha Dar es Salaam. Yeye anasoma mwaka wa 3. Yeye atamaliza shule.
See here, the start of every word except for ni, which means is me, mi, which is the noun class in the plural for this noun class. And we've just learned that some of them for the adjectives you don't need to put like put me in front of it or put the noun class in front of it. So mizuri means good, but of course you have to put me because you're describing something in the me group. And so I'm still trying to like notice which adjectives are not used. I think I mentioned before in the first video that I made about how the numbers were really weird to me, that the numbers don't change, that the numbers change a lot. So like 4 could be written in many different ways, and maybe there's like a core sounds that are consistent, but there's so many things around it. And I'm just learning right now that they're like adjectives in the sense that they change based on the noun group as well. If you're using them to like say for bananas or something, that would agree with the noun group as well. Over the past few lessons we've been learning how to construct like the car that you bought, and there's 2 ways of doing it. There's one that I would say is easier, and there's one that's a bit like harder because it's inside, there's a sound inside the verb and you have to listen really well. And in my experience with Spanish, there was these kind of constructions, and in my head it was always like I always used the easy one first, and then the more listening and reading I did over the months, I would slowly, and the more I understood the other one and started to notice it in the listening and reading I was doing, the more confident I felt that I was be able to slowly start reproducing it. And so it's interesting now to notice these things really early on, and then understand that it'll take longer, kind of like almost predicting the fact that I know that this other version of saying it will take me longer to understand. I remember that during week 1 or 2, I noticed in one of the one of the stories that I was using in language tools, one of the beginner stories. Let me find it. Right here, I noticed that po was there, and from the translation, I kind of figured out that it means when. They put it here, when I play. And I remember, I think I noted it in one of the videos that I can't wait until like he explains it, and he just did.
Mo and ko for where, when where isn't the question, and it's just joining the sentence. For when isn't the question, we can use po.
Well, that was weeks 5 to 8. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like got a real insight into how I use the content and how I use the course and how I kind of play around with them. There was many patterns that I didn't show you guys, that like, because I didn't want the video to be really long. Many patterns that I noticed, and then the course talked about it. Or there was many patterns where the course talked about it, and I've actually yet to see the patterns come about in the content, or I haven't noticed them since I've been exposed to the patterns in the course. And so there's many things I didn't show you, but just so you guys get an idea of how I go about noticing things and things like that. And so hopefully in the next few videos, probably 2 videos or something like that, I'll show you how I use Teach Yourself and how I continue with this phase. And really what happens after Teach Yourself is quite different from I think how it is right now, where it's loads of kind of like focused pattern analysis, and it just kind of becomes just general reading and listening. And I'll show you guys how that is as well for me. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys benefited from it, and please leave a comment if you guys are learning a language as well. How do you guys go about like using the different resources that you use? I'd really love to hear it. Thank you very much.